Lauren, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. As many know you, you're the Chief Marketing Officer at HelloPrenup, and I'm so excited to chat with you and have you share your personal experience with prenups. So back in, 2020, you and I met the old-fashioned way on the internet. I was a new mom, I was just starting HelloPrenup, and I was looking for someone who was really a marketing genius to help me figure out how to talk to customers. As most people know, I'm an attorney, I'm no marketing genius. That's how we met. Tell me a little bit about your side.
100%. So at the time, I had just finished the traditional prenup process. So I had just gotten engaged and I was basically asked the question of, should we get a prenup with my current boyfriend? And at the time, I had never been exposed to this process. And so I'm sitting there thinking, of course I'm going to get a prenup with you. I'm not here for your money. Whatever you need me to do to prove it so that we can get married. And we started the traditional prenup process, and it was very adversarial. It was very expensive. And I honestly felt very alone during the process because there really isn't a good place to go get a prenup. The only two options that exist on the internet at the time were, you could do a sketchy do-it-yourself form builder,
Yep.
or you're basically going to hire a divorce attorney, which nobody wants to do after they just got engaged. And they really don't want to spend thousands of dollars and thousands of minutes talking about something that really should be between the two of you. And so we ended up going through the traditional attorney process. And what I found at the time was it was really difficult because I was marrying somebody that had a much higher net worth than me. They were a lot more established in their career. They had assets to protect. I always say I had a BMW, some Cheez-Its. I really had nothing. And so I'm sitting there going, how does this really affect me without any direction from somebody to help me and to coach me through these conversations?
Yeah.
I met with a few different attorneys. I felt most comfortable meeting with a woman because I just thought, if I meet with a woman, maybe she'll understand me and maybe she'll give me some insight on what it's like to be a woman and go through this process or, enter into a marriage as a woman. And after meeting with many different attorneys, I finally decided on the cheapest one because I didn't see much difference between the three. All they really said to me was, you probably shouldn't marry this man because it's a very traditional power struggle type situation.
But why? Why didn't they want you to marry him? What was it about? Was there a draft? Give me more insight.
Right. And so basically what they were saying was, if you marry this man, you are essentially going to be shut out financially from every single asset and
Were
from
those
every
his
single
terms?
resource. Those were the terms that were presented to me.
Okay.
And so what I didn't know at the time was that a prenup is negotiable. It's actually a collaborative document.
Should be, yeah.
But when you don't have any assets and you don't think you're really bringing anything to the table financially, you have this assumption that you're playing defense while they're playing offense. And what happens is your attorney goes back and forth with your partner's attorney, and they start creating clauses and certain terms that they think are going to fit you and your partner's wishes. But what actually ends up happening is you go through many different iterations of the document. It takes a really, really long time. You go home from your meetings with your attorneys and you're sitting at the dinner table with your fiance and you're saying, why don't you want me to have the family home in the event of a death? Or why don't you want me to have the family home in the event of a divorce? I'm pregnant with your child. What's going to happen in the event that this doesn't work out? Where are we going to go? Also, at the time, I was planning to quit my job and stay home and raise our kids because he had a lot more money than I did. And so it just made sense financially. It's if I have the ability to stay home and raise our son, why wouldn't I? But what I didn't realize is that by doing that, you're actually also giving up your high earning career years where you're entering the workforce and you're able to save your own wealth.
And so many women do that, by the way. So many women feel like, you know what, he's the higher earner, so I'm just going to quit my job and it makes sense. Right? That contributes to the wealth gap.
Right. 100%. And it also contributes to a huge break in your relationship because what ends up happening is you outsource the different labor in the family, right? So the labor of bringing home the finances goes to one party, and then the labor of taking home what happens inside the home goes to the other person. And if you talk to my ex-husband, he'll say it was like the Marines and the Army, you're both working so hard to protect your country, but you don't work together on it always. And so you can't always appreciate each other at the end of the day because there's this imbalance of, well, I'm bringing home all the finances, so you should appreciate that I'm doing that. lo and behold, I actually had a lot of resentment because at the end of the day, I was shut out from the finances, which is very typical in the traditional process, especially when there's a giant wage gap between the two of you. And so what I learned going through this process is that the traditional process is great for people that have very high net worths. They are okay with going through attorneys to make sure that their assets are protected. But what I realized is that the traditional process is very, very broken for everyday people who just want to enter marriage and feel really, really good about the love that they have for their partner. Unfortunately, for me, when I went through the traditional attorney process, I wasn't guided on different ideas. Like, for example, I didn't know that there's such things as a lump sum clause, where if I did stay home and I decided to raise our child and I didn't go back to work, at least I would have some money set aside for just me. So in the event that it didn't work out, I had something to fall back on. And I mean, spoiler alert, I'm not with my husband anymore. And so every single day, I do believe that part of the reason our marriage didn't work out was because I signed this very heavy document that loomed over me every single day that basically said, you're kind of on your own financially in the event that it doesn't work out. I saw the red flags in the relationship very early on. And so the reason why I'm at HelloPrenup was because I decided I need to go back into the workforce. I don't have anything financially prepared for me because it's not going to be accounted for, and it's not accounted for in our prenup. So I need to go back to work. And luckily for me, I'm like, I'm going to do something part-time while my son is, doing naps and whatever I can pull off just to have something going. And I had a marketing background. And so I said, why don't I do some part-time work? And I was so fortunate enough to go on Upwork, and I see this marketing position for this company called HelloPrenup. And I'm like, oh my God, if this is what I think it is, this is what I wish I knew about or existed when I went through the process. At the time when I saw the marketing position, it was 2 years into our relationship. And at that point, I knew the inevitable was coming. And so I was so grateful to see the post that you had put for the marketing support that you needed at the time, because I truly understand the need of what couples are going through when they are set with this. I want to get a prenup and I want to make sure that we do it right, but I genuinely don't know where to go to do it. So that has been a huge consideration of what we've built at HelloPrenup, and it has been so much fun doing that with you for the past few years, because one of the things we really want to accomplish is making sure that people have what they need to feel really good about this process. A prenup is not a bad thing. Okay, it's actually an incredible thing. It gets the two of you on the same page prior to marriage. But when you aren't educated and you don't really understand where to go or how to get the resources that you need on your own, you feel set up to fail. Your attorney has this giant responsibility to educate you on every single thing they possibly could to make you feel comfortable, but they're also billing you by the hour. And nobody wants to spend their dollars and time doing that when you could do it yourself. So it has been an incredible experience working at HelloPrenup, and honestly, because of my experience, I'm so grateful that I went through it, because it really does help us understand what it's like in the real world, in the wild, to go get that prenup, and inevitably what could happen if you sign the wrong one.
I often get asked about what is the most challenging part of HelloPrenup for me as an attorney. And my answer to that is most often it's how to deliver information, complex legal information, to people who may not otherwise have a legal background. Now, you have been instrumental in ensuring that HelloPrenup is a resource that anybody can use. Tell me about how we approach that.
Right. So, well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity, because working here has been so much fun. The first thing we like to do at HelloPrenup is listen to our couples. So we want to make sure that couples feel heard and seen when they come to HelloPrenup, and that we are delivering on everything that they could possibly need to go through this prenup process. When I went through the traditional attorney process, I didn't have what I needed. The first thing was education. I didn't have the resources that I needed to feel really confident about the process. The first part of that was the education of what the heck is a prenup and why you should sign one, right? The benefits of a prenup were relayed to me in a way that made sense for my partner. They were not relayed in a way that made sense to me because I was the lesser earning spouse. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is hearing every single party, regardless of where you are in your marriage journey, but also regardless of your net worth, because regardless of your net worth and where you are, a prenup is a powerful tool for you. So because I wasn't able to get the resources that I needed going through the traditional attorney process, the first thing we wanted to tackle at HelloPrenup was making sure couples have what they need to feel really good about this process. What that looks like is actually laying out what the heck does it mean to actually get a prenup, right? What does it feel like to get a prenup? What is the emotional process that you're going to go through? And what are the things that you should really be considering when you're going through that process? The second thing is making sure that you understand what a prenup covers. Because a prenup doesn't just protect the person that has the most assets. It also talks about things like debt, inheritance, right? Like, what do we want to do about our finances as a couple once we get married? What are our goals for this relationship, right? Do we want to retire at 40 or do we want to retire separately and live separate lives? Like, what does that actually look like? I didn't have any of these resources when I went through the process. I actually had an attorney say to me, you probably just shouldn't even sign this prenup. And I paid her $1,000 to say that. It really got me nowhere. I didn't have somebody sitting there saying, have you considered this? There's also this option too. What if you did this? Instead, what ended up happening is our two attorneys sat there and said, is your party okay with this? Yep, of course my partner's party was okay with this because it completely blocked me out of everything financially. They were set up, it was an easy retainer for that attorney. My attorney did not guide me on different possible solutions. Because of what we wanted to accomplish during our marriage, what were the things that I had available to me to go back to my partner, my soon-to-be husband, and say, hey, babe, actually, can you consider this instead because it's really important to me? For example, one of the things that I didn't know was even possible at the time was not, if I'm going to quit my job and stay home to raise my son, maybe we should set aside some money so that Lauren has something to fall back on. Lauren has her own money in retirement, and I don't have to ask every single time I go to Sephora, right? It's like you have this money put away that you can spend however you see fit. He's going to have his own money that he sees fit, but the fact that Lauren's quitting her job, what happens to her money that she brought into the marriage? While he's busy earning all of this appreciation on his accounts, I'm just sitting there doing the domestic labor at home. So what are the things that we can do to equalize the relationship so that Lauren feels the financial freedom in the marriage and doesn't feel like I'm giving something up by being in this marriage, which inevitably left a big gap between the two of us, and we weren't able to go through that. And so what we wanted to do at HelloPrenup was provide resources so that people felt like I have what I need to be able to go back to my partner and say, hey, babe, have you considered this? This is really important to me. I want to talk about what's going to happen to our inheritance. I want to talk about the fact that I'm going to inherit my family home. I want to talk about what it looks like for me to quit my job. What if you want to go back to school? Who's going to help pay for that student debt? Like, we need to educate people on what it means to actually go through this process, but also give them the tools to know these are the different ways that you can collaborate. These are the different things that you can consider when writing out your prenup.
I often say that one of the most gratifying parts of HelloPrenup to me is the fact that we offer all of this information for free. I often say I'm an educator at heart, and I really believe that if you can offer people quality information that pertains to these really complex legal topics in a way that they can understand, I mean, immense value. So tell me a little bit about, if you could go back in time, what do you wish your attorney would have provided you in terms of information about your prenup or options that you could have had?
Sure. To me, it looks like absolutely it's free. It's a mandatory part of the process. You need to educate yourself about what it's like to actually go through this and what are the different possibilities that are available to you within this agreement. It's not just a contract, right? It's an agreement. It's between two parties coming together and saying, we feel really, really good about the terms of this agreement. What I wish I would have had is a free resource, if not my attorney telling me directly, sitting there saying you can do A, B, or C, at least something that, like you said, in plain English could explain to me, here are the options that are available to you in your state as part of your law that you can use as a powerful tool to feel really, really good in your marriage. Whether that's free on the website, that was literally a printable that I could take home, whether it was a coffee table book, it didn't matter. I just needed access to that information so that I could feel really strong in my process with my partner and not have to feel like I'm relying on my attorney to tell me everything I need to know in order to make the right executive decision for me in this prenup. It puts the attorney attorney in a bad position, right? Because the pressure for them to deliver on what you need and every single goal mentioned in your marriage is put on them. Well, first of all, they're not the ones getting married.
Yeah.
This is not their agreement that they're signing. They're signing on your behalf to represent you, but the terms are between the two parties,
Yep.
the two people that are actually getting married.
Yep.
So I wish I would have had the education of an attorney explained to me in a very user-friendly way so that I could have what I need to make the decision, so that I don't have to rely on the attorney to make these very powerful decisions on my behalf that I inevitably am going to have to feel good about.
And I think it's really important to note that the couple should have autonomy over the process.
Right.
And I think that's something based on your experience that I know we've talked a lot about. You wish you had.
Totally.
And you would have been able to sit down with your ex and kind of hammer out an agreement that made sense for you while also engaging attorneys, which we always recommend, highly recommend. The dual participation process that HelloPrenup offers is something that we developed in an effort to facilitate that collaborative communication. One of the stories I often tell about when I was working at the law firm was I was working on a prenup for a very high net worth individual. And that individual was getting a prenup, we'll call him future husband, and his fiance, future wife. Future husband's parents were very high net worth, and they dictated about 6 to 8 weeks before the wedding that their son better get a prenup. So lo and behold, he retains my office, and we begin the prenup negotiation process. Now, in this process, it really alienated the future wife because I think at the core of the situation, the couple was not able to work through what they wanted in the prenup as a couple. You know, future husband's parents were super, super involved in the process. Future wife's attorney really just took over the process for her, so she felt, pun intended, very divorced from the experience. And in that, I think it created some real marital or future marital communication issues. And as far as I know, to present day, she still doesn't talk to her future in-laws. And to me, this was just a really unfortunate example of what happens when a couple has no autonomy over the process, no ability, no communication is facilitated between the two when it comes to the prenup. And that's why I built HelloPrenup's dual participation system to ensure that both parties have an equal say in the inputs of the prenup, that they can then negotiate and retain counsel to assist them with legal advice, edits, further customization. And I know that's something that would have been incredibly valuable in your situation. And perhaps had you had that dual participation system, you would have had the opportunity to come up with an agreement, to negotiate a prenup that you felt really comfortable with, which in turn maybe would have led to a happier, healthier, more transparent, communicative marriage. Thank you so much, Lauren, for joining me today and helping couples all over the country create prenups that they are proud of.
No, Julia, thank you for including me at HelloPrenup so that we can help all couples get a prenup that they're proud of.